Welcome to the Dream Power Show. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. Regular listeners to this program know we often explore specific methods of dream interpretation. There's one that's piqued my curiosity for a long time, and that's the practice of using the Kabbalah for understanding dreams. For those of you who are not familiar with it, the Kabbalah is a school of Jewish thought that strives to explain the mysteries of life. And what's more mysterious than dreams? We're going to explore dreams through the lens of the Kabbalah with psychotherapist, author, and dream master Linda Schiller. Linda has taught and written about many aspects of dream work for the past 35 years and is the author of the book Modern Dreamwork, New Tools for Decoding Your Soul's Wisdom. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Linda.
Thank you, Debbie. Good to be here.
Well, thank you. Well, Linda, in case you can't tell from my name, I'm Jewish, but I have to be honest, I'm not that well versed in the tradition of dream work and Judaism. I mean, I remember Joseph talking about dreams with the Pharaoh, but that's really about it as far as I know. So can you talk about how dreams are referenced in Jewish scripture and writings?
And you're in very good company, by the way, because although there is a long history of tradition in Jewish tradition of talking about dreams and dream work and both waking and sleeping dreams, most people, unless they've gone out of their way to explore it, don't know much about it. So the first thing I'll just say is that the word in Hebrew for dream is chalom, rhymes with shalom, and that is used to mean both dream and vision. So in the Torah, the holy book in Jewish tradition, if you see in Hebrew the word chalom, it might be talking about a nighttime dream, or it might be talking about a daytime vision. So some examples of each of these two types are, one, of course, the most famous dreamer in the Torah is Joseph. And he both has dreams that his brothers take great umbrage with when he talks about the dreams of, the sheaves of wheat surrounding him and all bowing down. And the brothers interpret that to mean that Joseph is, asking his brothers to bow down to him. But then later on, Joseph has his get out of jail free card, so to speak, by interpreting the dreams of I think it's the baker and the candle maker, baker and somebody in prison. And he correctly interprets who will live and who will die according to their dreams. And then later on, when Pharaoh is dealing with the famine in Egypt, he gets wind of this master dream interpreter who was in jail, and that's how he becomes Pharaoh's right-hand man, is by being his chief dream interpreter. So the Joseph story is rife with dreams and dream interpretation. Daytime visions, which are dream-like, which we might call waking dreams, would include things like Moses at the burning bush. He was wide awake when he encountered the image or vision of God speaking to him at the burning bush. That was also a chalom, or a vision. And later on in the prophets, in Isaiah's having visions all the time of things that he's wide awake, but they're called chalom as well in Isaiah.
The interesting thing is that, the mysticism of the Kabbalah, for instance, as we're talking about that, placed such an importance on our dreams.
Well, two things. One is, if we look at the Talmud, which is the accompanying book to the Torah, which explains in detail many of the laws and teachings, one of the things the Talmud has to say about dreams is that dreams are 1/60th prophecy. So embedded in every dream is some element of prophetic thinking, which our prophets often would tune into to help them lead and guide the people in ancient times. So embedded in the idea of dream work in Jewish and in Kabbalistic thinking is that we actually have the ability to see around the corner of time and space. Most of us don't access that on a regular basis, but it's there for us. And one of the things that I have done in my Pardes framework of doing dream work based on the Kabbalah is to raise up that layer of dream work, both the practical as well as the mystical, and the ability to use dreams as prophecy to equal importance.
And it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, is that the Kabbalah says that when we sleep, our soul is the part that leaves our body, and that it receives images and these prophetic things that you're talking about through our dreams. It's reflected in our dreams. Is this correct?
That's right. In Jewish teaching, there are 5 levels of the soul, and they each have a different name in Hebrew. And an interesting sort of fun fact is that the reason why we're advised never to wake up a sleeper suddenly is because when we sleep, our dream soul, or that part of ourself, leaves our body, has an out-of-body experience, if you will, but remains connected to our physical body by a thin silver thread. And if you wake up the dreamer too suddenly, you risk that this thread might become severed and the soul wouldn't find its way back to its body again. So that's why we're taught to wake a sleeper gently so the soul can re-enter the body and come back to waking life.
Linda, you have a method of teaching understanding dreams based on the Kabbalah way of reading the Torah. Can you explain what that is and what makes it different from other ways of dream interpretation?
The method that I have designed is called the Pardes Method, and in English that would be spelled Pardes. And what that word means, there are multiple layers of meaning in the word. The word itself, the Hebrew word Pardes, means orchard. It's simply a translation of the word orchard. The allegory of the word is that orchard is referring to the Garden of Eden. So when we read Tanakh, there is also an anagram in the word of the P, R, D, and S, which corresponds with the 4 layers that we read the Tanakh, the Holy Book. So the P stands for the word in Hebrew pshat, which means the simple layer. So if you're doing dream work, and what I did is I took this method of reading Torah and applied it to understanding our dreams. So the P, or the pshat, or simple method, is you're simply reading the words if you're reading Tanakh. And in a dream, it's the dream story itself. It's the images, the words, the setting. It's the dream that you have. That's the simple layer. And we can certainly just appreciate a dream on the layer of, oh, that was an interesting story, or these were beautiful or scary images, or whatever came through. Done. The second layer is the R, which stands for the Hebrew word remez, and remez means in English hint. So the next layer is what is hinted at in these words. So it's like when you're reading a poem and there's the words themselves, and then you start to say, oh, and this author of this poet is creating an image that reminds me of this, and I associate to that. So when we're reading Torah, and we have line in Torah, we read the words, the pshat layer, and then the next layer is, what does this remind me of? Or where else in Torah were these words used, or was this sentence written? Same thing in dream work. The next layer, what is the dream hinting at? These are our first associations to the dream. Here's the story. And then we go, oh yeah, that reminds me of this. Or, oh yeah, I dreamed about pizza because I ate pizza for dinner last night. That's right. Or, oh, I'm planning a trip to Italy and there's a lot of pizza in Italy, so that must be what the dream is about, that I'm planning this trip someday when we can go travel to Italy again. So that would be the second layer. We pretty quickly, if we pay attention to the dream, can get what it's hinting at for us, because it's immediate associations that we don't have to work very hard for. The third layer is the D, or the Drash layer, and that comes from the Hebrew word lidrosh, which means to pursue or chase after. So this is the layer that we have to do some work to understand. And if we're reading Tanakh, if we're reading the Torah, we have to study with others. We have to consult other sources. We have to dive deeper into the meaning of the words, perhaps using gematria, which is the numerology in Hebrew tradition, and use a variety of other ways of getting past an initial association to what else is there. In Dreamwork, this is where we do most of the actual work of peeling off the layers, or as Jung would say, unpacking the layers of the dream. And here in the Drash Layer, we use methods of Dreamwork to help enhance our understanding. We use methods such as the Gestalt Method, which is where every person and every object, even in the dream, is some aspect of yourself. So if you're dreaming about, I went to the seashore and there were big waves and there was a sandy beach, we'd say, what is the wave part of you? Or what is the sandy beach part of you, as well as the I of the dream, the you part of you. So that's one example. Then there are puns and plays on words. Are there any plays on words in your dream that you come up with? If you're dreaming about a whale that showed up on the beach, are you dreaming about this big leviathan? Or are you dreaming about crying really loudly, wailing, right? There's a pun or a play on words that might be there. And then there are lots of other ways of doing dream work, including what is called dream reentry, where you go back in your waking life inside of the dream and interact with the characters and the objects, and have the ability to ask them questions and get information from the mouth, so to speak, of the dream people to help enhance your understanding of the dream. So these are just a few examples. There are many, many ways of doing dream work. These are a few examples of things we might be doing in the Drash, the D layer of the dreaming. And finally, the fourth layer is what would be the S of Pardes, which stands in Hebrew for the word sod, which has ironically the same first letter in English, which is secret. Here is the secret, the mystical, the transpersonal layer, where we are dreaming of things connecting us with heaven and earth. We are dreaming of a connection that may be coming from God or the divine or angels or whatever your belief system holds. We're also dreaming here at this transpersonal layer. Sometimes we dream for ourselves, sometimes we dream for others, and sometimes we dream for the world. And in particular, in these times of unrest and fear and pandemic, there's been a lot of people having dreams that are reflecting not only what they're feeling and going through personally, but they're also reflecting the state of the world, either as an image or mirror for what's going on in the world, or as hopefully peeking around the corner of time to a healing and a resolution of some of these things that are happening in the form of what we sometimes we fear and sometimes we hope will be prophecy. We won't know, of course, until that time comes, what the dreams are saying. Right. So the core of this method of dream work is that a dream comes to us with multiple simultaneous layers of meaning. We don't always get all the way through all 4 layers of understanding a dream, but we don't always need to. We might not always want to. We might just want our first hit, or we might want just the mystical and the transpersonal meaning to ease our soul. But the idea is there are multiple layers of meaning that are true in each dream that we have. So it's not that a dream means just one thing or just another thing. It can mean this and this at the same time.
Absolutely. It seems like it's a very comprehensive method of understanding a dream. And one of the things that I've learned is that once you have a dream, it doesn't mean that, you take the time to sit down, write about it and understand it. And then, when you have that aha moment, you just go and run with it. A dream can live on. And if you go back to a dream you had a year ago or even 5 years ago and look at it, it could take on new meaning. Do you use this system to do that kind of re-entry into a dream?
Yes. What you're saying is true. Sometimes we have dreams that are reoccurring dreams. So we keep revisiting the same idea or theme or place over and over again. And sometimes we have dreams that are simply very memorable. So we remember them for days, weeks, months, even years later. And then what, of course, I would encourage anyone who's interested in dream work to do is if we keep a journal, we can go back and see our own history of dreaming. And we have a compendium then of the dreams that we can compare and contrast and see the changes over time in the dreams and in the themes, which then give us insight to ourselves and our personal work and our transpersonal work. So it's very, very useful if we're paying attention to our dreams to really keep that record so we can go back when and if we need to, or simply want to make progress and put some pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have a question about the Kabbalah. Does it differentiate between good dreams and bad dreams?
The answer is yes, actually. And Philo, I think if I'm pronouncing his name right, Philo, from the time of Aristotle and Socrates, one of the philosophers, a Jewish philosopher, talked about how there are three sources for dreams. One is from ourself, one is from the heavens or the divine, and one is from what is called in Hebrew the Yetzer Hara, or the evil side. So there is some attention to angels, demons, forces of light, forces of darkness in Jewish tradition, both in sort of Western tradition a little bit, in the Ashkenazi tradition, but even more in the Eastern or the Sephardic tradition. There's a lot of conversation and writing about balancing these forces of light and dark. And dreams, how to protect ourselves both in waking life and sleeping life from the darker side, the Yetzer Hara.
People want to get in touch with you to find out more about you. How do they do that?
So I have a website, lindaschiller.com. That's all one word. And I have a website from my book. The book is called Modern Dreamwork, New Tools for Decoding Your Soul's Wisdom. And the website is simply moderndreamwork.com. So you can read all about the book and what it covers. And then I have an email, lindaschiller@gmail.com.
We've been speaking with Linda Schiller about Kabbalah dreams.